All right, hey everyone. Big board meeting coming up. Need the down low on Ion Exchange India Ltd? Well, you're in the right spot. We're going deep on their Q2 FY25 financials.
Buckle up.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride. Just kidding. But seriously, this stuff is important. We've got all sorts of goodies to dig into. Investor questions, the official press release, even the auditor's reports.
Oh, and we can't forget the investor presentation.
Exactly. We're going to pull out the good stuff, the insights that really matter. So what's the big deal with Ion Exchange?
Well, they've been around forever, like over 60 years. They're kind of the backbone of India's water treatment scene,
Yeah.
making sure everyone has clean water from massive industrial plants all the way down to your kitchen sink.
It's a kind of a big deal. And how are they doing, big picture?
Overall, pretty darn good. Solid growth, revenues up, profits up, margins look healthy.
But wait, there's always a but, right?
Right. Their cash flow statement is a bit interesting. Lots of money going into bank deposits, specifically ones that mature after 3 months. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, that seems a little odd. Like, why tie up all that cash?
It could be a strategic move. Maybe they're feeling super confident about the future and want to lock in higher returns down the line.
So playing the long game, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it does mean less cash on hand right now, less flexibility to react to changes in the market. It's a calculated risk for sure.
Interesting. Okay, so let's zoom in a bit. How are their different business segments performing? They've got those three main areas: engineering, chemicals, and consumer products, right?
Yep, those are the big ones. Engineering is still their bread and butter, bringing in the most revenue.
The old faithful, huh?
Yeah, you could say that. But chemicals is the rising star. Seriously impressive growth there. And consumer products is slowly but surely gaining traction. They're investing a lot in infrastructure there, which is putting a little pressure on margins, though.
Makes sense. Growing pains, right?
Yeah.
But how do all these pieces fit together? What's their big picture strategy?
It seems pretty clear. They want to be the water solution provider, not just building treatment plants, but making the chemicals, the filters, and even selling directly to consumers.
So like a one-stop shop for all things water.
Exactly. It's a smart move, especially with water security becoming such a major concern globally. The demand for their services is only going to go up.
Smart. Okay, let's talk about the future. What's on the horizon for Ion Exchange? Their investor presentation mentioned some interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah. They've got some big plans.
Like what?
Well, they're expanding their resin production facility in Roha. Resins are a key ingredient in their water treatment products, so this expansion is a sign they're expecting a lot more demand.
And how much demand are we talking?
Hold on to your hat. Their current order book is over INR 3,580.45 crore. That's billions with a B.
Wow, that's a lot of zeros. So they're expecting massive growth.
Right, and their pipeline of potential projects is even bigger. They are going after it aggressively.
All right, so expansion, huge order book, rosy future. Sounds like smooth sailing, right?
Well, not quite. There's a little wrinkle.
Hit me with it.
Sri Lanka. They owe Ion Exchange a significant amount of money.
Uh-oh. That's not good. And we all know Sri Lanka's been having, well, a rough time.
Yep. And if they can't pay their debts, that could create a cash flow problem for Ion Exchange. They might have to write off that debt, which would hurt their profitability.
So it's a reminder that even the most successful companies can be affected by global events, huh?
Absolutely. It's all connected.
Yeah.
And it highlights why it's so important to look beyond just the financial numbers. Got to consider the bigger picture.
Okay, so we've got growth, diversification, geopolitical risk. What else? What about their approach to sustainability and innovation? That seemed like a big focus in their presentation.
Oh, absolutely. They're doing a lot more than just treating water at the end of the pipe. They're thinking about the entire water cycle, offering solutions for every stage. Plus, they've got 2 dedicated R&D facilities and a ton of patents.
So they're not just relying on old tech, they're pushing the boundaries, right?
Yeah, and that's important because water treatment is becoming increasingly high-tech. Ion Exchange seems to be on top of it, developing new solutions for a market that's only going to grow.
All right, so before we jump into the nitty-gritty of the investor questions you've gathered,
Oh yeah, we got some good ones.
let's just take a breath and think about what we've learned so far. What are the key takeaways for someone heading into that board meeting?
Well, Ion Exchange is a company that's doing a lot of things right. They're growing, they're diversifying, and they're innovating. But there are some potential risks to keep in mind, like that Sri Lanka situation and the overall global economic climate. It's a mixed bag, but overall they seem to be on the right track.
Okay, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but definitely a company worth paying attention to. All right, stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back after a quick break to dive into those investor questions. All right, let's get into these investor questions. The kind of stuff sharp analysts would be asking after seeing these Q2 results. First up, what's really driving Ion Exchange's revenue growth? I mean, we know it's solid, but what's the engine under the hood?
Well, the investor presentation gives us some hints. Their engineering segment, it's all about those big EPC contracts they've been snagging.
IDC.
EPC stands for engineering, procurement, and construction. Basically, it's like they're doing these turnkey projects where they design, build, and get these whole water treatment plants up and running.
Oh, okay, I get it. So it's like they're not just winning contracts, they're actually delivering on them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember that massive order book we were talking about earlier? Those projects are starting to generate some serious cash as they move from the planning stage to, actually putting bricks and mortar together.
Yeah. Ah, so it's starting to pay off. Makes sense. What about their chemicals segment? What's fueling their growth spurt there?
Looks like a mix of things. Increased sales volume, for one.
So they're selling more chemicals.
Yeah, and they're getting better prices for them too, which suggests strong demand and a good competitive position. They're in a sweet spot right now. Plus, don't forget that Roja plant expansion.
Right, right.
That's going to give them even more production capacity, allowing them to keep up with that demand and maybe even expand into new markets.
Okay, so they're hitting on all cylinders there. What about profitability? How did their profit margins look this quarter?
They seem to have managed costs pretty well, even with all the inflation craziness going on.
Yeah, everything's more expensive these days.
Right. But their raw material costs have gone up pretty much in line with their revenue growth. So it seems like they've been able to pass on some of those increased costs to customers without scaring them off.
That's a good sign. They have some pricing power.
Yeah, definitely.
But can they keep this up? It's a competitive market out there, water treatment. What are they doing to stay ahead of the pack?
Well, their investor presentation really hammers on their diverse product portfolio and their focus on innovation. They're not just selling, basic stuff. They're offering these customized solutions that are tailored to specific customer needs.
So they're not a one-size-fits-all kind of company.
Nope. And they're also pouring money into R&D to develop new and improved technologies.
Like what?
For example, they've just launched these super advanced membrane filtration systems, way more efficient, lower operating costs. That gives them a real edge over competitors who are stuck using older tech.
So it's not just about being the cheapest option, it's about offering the best value.
Exactly, you got it.
Okay, so taking a step back, what does all this tell us about Ion Exchange's position in the market? Are they the top dog or are they swimming with sharks?
Based on their performance and what we're seeing in the industry, I'd say they're a major player, no doubt. Strong track record, loyal customers, and they're growing both in India and internationally. They're definitely well positioned to capitalize on the rising demand for water treatment solutions.
All right, so a force to be reckoned with. But are there any potential roadblocks, things that could throw them off course? What are the biggest risks or opportunities they're facing?
Well, as we mentioned before, that whole Sri Lanka situation is a bit of a cloud hanging over them. If that debt doesn't get sorted out soon, it could really hurt their cash flow and profitability. It's a reminder that even economies that seem stable can suddenly hit some turbulence. And then there's the whole global economic uncertainty thing.
Right, yeah. Everything feels a bit shaky these days.
Exactly. If global investment slows down, that could put the brakes on infrastructure projects, which would directly hit their engineering segment.
Makes sense. So they're not immune to the big economic forces. But on the other hand, are there any, positive trends that could give them a boost?
Oh, for sure. The growing focus on water sustainability is a huge one.
Yeah, everyone's talking about that these days.
And then there's the increased investment in infrastructure, especially in developing countries. Plus, the technology in water treatment is advancing at an incredible pace. All of these factors create a really favorable environment for companies like Ion Exchange.
So they're in the right place at the right time with the right expertise.
Pretty much.
Okay, let's move on to strategic initiatives. Did they announce any major investments, partnerships, or projects during the quarter that could shape their future?
Well, as we already talked about, that Roja plant expansion is a big one.
Right, yeah.
It's a major investment that's going to significantly increase their resin production capacity, giving them the muscle to keep up with demand and grab more market share. And their investor presentation also mentions they're really focused on breaking into new markets, especially in Southeast Asia and Africa. Yeah, those regions are facing some serious water challenges, so they're pouring money into water infrastructure. It's a huge opportunity for Ion Exchange.
So they're not just playing defense, they're going on offense.
That's good.
I like their style. Now, back to their sustainability and innovation efforts.
Hmm.
We talked about their R&D facilities and all those patents, but did you see any concrete examples of how those efforts are actually translating into real-world solutions?
Definitely. Their investor presentation showcases these new and innovative products they've developed, specifically to address sustainability concerns.
Give me an example.
For example, they've rolled out these new filtration systems that use way less energy and produce less waste.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And they're even working on technologies to recover and reuse valuable resources from wastewater.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is, not just talking the talk.
Exactly.
All right, let's put on our investor hats for a second. What do these results mean for shareholders? And has there been any change in their dividend policy or payout expectations?
Well, looking at their financial performance and their future prospects, Ion Exchange seems to be in a strong position to deliver value to their shareholders. Consistent growth, healthy profit margins, strategic investments. All good signs. They've also got a history of paying dividends, which is always attractive to investors looking for income.
Yeah, dividends are always nice.
But their financials and the investor presentation don't mention any changes to their dividend policy.
So no big news on that front. But their overall performance suggests they're in good shape to keep rewarding their investors. Okay, before we wrap up, let's talk about risk. It's always top of mind for investors. We've mentioned a few potential headwinds, but what would you say are the biggest long-term risks facing Ion Exchange?
I think one of the biggest risks, and this is something all companies in rapidly evolving industries face, is disruption. The water treatment industry is changing all the time, new technologies popping up, new business models.
It's a fast-moving world.
Ion Exchange needs to be nimble and adaptable to stay ahead of the curve. If they fall behind in innovation or don't anticipate market shifts, they could lose ground to more agile competitors.
So it's not just about being good today, it's about being even better tomorrow, constantly pushing the envelope and anticipating what the world will need.
Exactly.
All right, so we've really dug into Ion Exchange, haven't we? Their growth, the different parts of their business, those strategic moves they're making, and even how they're tackling sustainability.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive picture.
It is. But now let's look ahead. What's next for them? What should investors be watching out for, in the coming months, even years?
Well, they've laid out a pretty ambitious plan. They want to be a global leader in water solutions, and they're definitely putting their money where their mouth is to get there.
But the water industry, it's a bit of a beast, isn't it? Lots of moving parts, lots of challenges.
Oh, absolutely. It's complex, and what I'll be watching closely is how they handle those complexities,
Yeah.
how they actually put their vision into action.
So, like, what specifically will you be keeping an eye on?
Well, one thing is how they manage that expansion into new markets, especially Southeast Asia and Africa. Those are high growth areas, massive potential, but they're not easy places to do business.
Yeah, you can't just, like, copy and paste what works in India, right?
Exactly. They'll need to adapt, be flexible, figure out the local conditions, build relationships, deal with different regulations. It's a whole different ballgame.
All right, what else?
Innovation, how they keep pushing the boundaries, staying ahead of the tech curve. The water treatment industry is constantly evolving, so Ion Exchange can't afford to stand still. You got to keep investing in R&D, maybe even look at acquiring smaller companies with cutting-edge tech, to stay competitive.
So it's like they need to be thinking 10 steps ahead.
Right.
Anticipating what their rivals are doing, what the market will want down the line, kind of like a chess game.
Yeah, high-stakes one.
Anything else you'll be watching?
Talent. Can they attract and keep the best people? Building a global company, it takes a top-notch team, engineers, scientists, salespeople, the whole shebang.
That's a good point. Companies need to offer more than just a paycheck these days. People want to feel like they're part of something bigger, something meaningful.
Totally. And that comes down to leadership, creating the right kind of culture, a place where people want to work, want to contribute.
And speaking of leadership, how about risk management? We've talked about Sri Lanka, but there are always other things lurking out there, right? Economic downturns, new regulations, even natural disasters.
Oh yeah, the unexpected always happens. Ion Exchange needs a solid plan to identify and handle those risks. It's part of being a responsible company.
So it's like they're sailing a ship, right? And they need a good captain, a sturdy ship, a map. But they also need to be ready for those storms that pop up out of nowhere.
Great analogy.
Okay, so big picture, what's your overall outlook for Ion Exchange?
Bullish, bearish,
Yeah.
somewhere in between. I'd say cautiously optimistic. They've got a lot going for them. Strong market position, diverse products, committed to innovation, and they're expanding globally. But there are definitely hurdles to overcome. Their success hinges on how well they navigate those hurdles and execute their strategy.
So lots of potential, but not a sure thing. Investors need to do their due diligence, weigh the risks and the rewards, and decide for themselves if Ion Exchange is a company they want to put their money on.
That's always the key, informed decision-making.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, folks, that about wraps it up for this deep dive into Ion Exchange. We've covered a lot of ground, but as always, this is just the starting point. There's always more to learn, more to explore.
The best investors are the ones who keep digging, keep asking questions, never stop learning.
So true. If you're interested in Ion Exchange, don't stop here. Dig into those financial statements, check out their website, see what the analysts are saying, and most importantly, form your own opinions. That's what it's all about. All right, this is The Deep Dive, signing off. We'll catch you on the next one.